Okay, is everybody ready for part 2 of the true legend of Jesse James? We're going to start with the story of his mother's childhood. Zerelda Cole was born in 1825 in Kentucky to James and Sarah Cole. She had a younger brother named Jesse. So, although I don't have any stories to corroborate it, I'm guessing that's probably where she got the idea for the name Jesse to name her son. Unfortunately, nobody knows why, but when he was 59 years old, he committed suicide, so that's kind of a bit of a sad story. But the reason why I'm starting back with Zerelda is a lot of these stories and happenings tend to repeat themselves along both her life and Jesse's life. The same kind of things happen either in exactly the same way or in a different way. So anyway, when she was very little, her dad fell off a horse and broke his neck and died. So her and her mom and her brother moved in with their grandpa in a tavern. And then shortly after that, her mom met somebody and remarried. But as the story goes, she did not get along very well with her stepdad. So her mom sent her off to Lexington, Kentucky to live with some relatives there. And they enrolled her in Catholic school at a convent. So she was raised in a Catholic school. And when she was getting ready to graduate, she met this other guy that was graduating from school that was going to be a Baptist preacher. So she met and married him at the age of 16. That would be Robert James, Jesse James' dad. So at about the time they got married, her mom and stepdad had already moved to Centerville, Missouri, and gotten a farm there. So she wanted to move and be close to her mom. So Robert James agreed, and they moved and bought a farm in Centerville, had her an 80-acre farm, so she could be close to her folks. And besides a Baptist preacher, he also became a pretty successful hemp farmer. And I will put up a picture right now. Some of you asked me about if you can still visit the James family farm. Yes, you can. I believe the link is jessejames.org, and I'll put the link down below in the comments, in the description section that you can click on. And the picture that you saw of the farm is actually a restoration. By the middle 70s, when it was still owned by the family, it basically had not been taken care of, so it was no more than basically just a pile of boards with most of them falling over. So I think in around 78 or 79 maybe, you can look on the .org site and I think it tells you, but I think it was 78, 79 when the county ended up buying the farm and making it into kind of like a museum kind of place. But anyway, back to when Jesse James' parents first got to the farm. He also, besides being a Baptist preacher and a successful farmer, he co-founded, I guess, a college in Liberty, Missouri. But anyway, let's get to the kids. In 1843 was when she had her first kid, Alexander Franklin James. And that was Frank James. He probably didn't like that first name Alexander so much, so he went by Frank. So he was born in 1843. And then in 1845, Robert James was born. Now some say he was Robert James Jr., and some birth records it gives his middle name as a different name. So then in that case he wouldn't be a junior, but regardless, Robert James was born, but he only lived to be 33 days old, and then he died. So next after that, in 1847, I think it was September, Jesse Woodson James was born. And then there was one more full-blood sibling to him, and that was in 1849, Susan James was born. So when he was little, he had one brother and one sister living as far as full brothers and full sisters. But another tragedy similar to his mom's, when he wasn't even quite 3 years old, this would be around the beginning part of 1850, his dad volunteered to be a chaplain in a wagon train going out to California with a bunch of people going out there for the gold rush. And he was thinking possibly when they got out to the camp that he could maybe set up and preach to the miners and maybe become a successful preacher out in California. But just a little while after he got out there, he came down with cholera and died. So it's doubtful that Jesse James even remembers anything about his original first dad. And then after that, his mom Zerelda met a pretty well-to-do farmer named Benjamin Sims. And just like she didn't get along with her stepdad too well, Benjamin Sims did not get along with Frank and Jesse, so Zerelda didn't even stay with him very long, and she left him. But then shortly after she was separated from him, he had a horse accident and ended up dying. And there was no kids by that marriage. And then after that, she met a doctor named Archie Reuben Samuel. And he supposedly was a real kind, soft-spoken man, and probably the closest thing that Jesse James ever had to a real dad, because it seemed like until he was about the age of 16, he did stay on the Samuels farm. So it seemed, at least from the few stories I know of, that they did get along pretty well. So I think he did kind of look at... he went by the name Reuben, even though I think his first name was Archie. I think he went by Reuben. So Reuben Samuels was probably the closer... Samuel. The reason why I said Samuels is a lot of people did mispronounce the name. So if you read some stories about Jesse James' second stepdad, and even his mom, when she was married to him, sometimes it's written as Samuels with an S, sometimes it's written just as Samuel. In fact, when they reported the story of Zerelda's passing away when she was in her 80s, they called her Mrs. Samuels with an S in the newspaper stories. I think that's just more the fact a lot of times, because when she originally moved out there, the James family had an S on the original at the end of their name. And when you would talk about getting to somebody's farm, somebody might be traveling and ask, how do I get to the Samuels farm? And you put the apostrophe S, which sounds just like, how would you be able to distinguish it from Samuels with an S or Samuels apostrophe S? So I think after a while people just get tired of correcting people, and they just go, fine, if they're going to call us Samuels, they call us Samuels. So, and the story of the things that happened in Jesse's childhood probably had the biggest influence on him turning to be an outlaw. Not just the things his brothers did, but other things that happened to him. As a young boy, he attended school, they said better than most, and he seemed to be a very able student and really liked attending school. He said he dreamed of possibly being a teacher someday, and he liked to read books from his biological dad's library. I guess his dad, being a Baptist preacher, had access to a lot of books, and Jesse James was particularly fond of the Shakespeare classics. So it seemed like, had things gone a certain direction, he probably would have ended up being a school teacher. But it was kind of difficult times, and the Civil War was starting when he was a kid, and his brother Frank did join the Civil War and fought in it, but he was too young at the time, so he didn't participate in the Civil War itself. So anyway, I think I've been rambling on along for this one. I'll do a little bit more of his childhood and get into the things that happened that kind of diverted his path from possibly being a school teacher in part 3.